And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of New York State Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Rick and Taylor here with you on another Thursday, a great day here in New York. And I never thought I'd have to deal with unexcused absences outside of my job, but apparently I have to deal with that with the Jets. I didn't know we also had to relive where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world is Aaron Rodgers? I don't think we know. Is it a big deal or is it not a big deal? We'll dive into that. The Giants take a little bit of a hit with their skill positions. Darren Waller retired. Can they replace him at tight end? And what does it say about the past regimes with the Giants and failing Daniel Jones? We'll talk the Yankees continuing to win on the road. And if they get the AL Central in the playoffs, it might be a really good thing. The Mets, coming back from a split in London, struggling a little bit with the Marlins, chance to win the series tonight. They get set for San Diego this weekend. The Liberty continue to win 5 games in 8 days, but they still are one of the, right now, the best team in WNBA. They get set for a big showdown with Las Vegas this weekend in a rematch of last year's championship. We'll talk NYCFC and why the opposing coach Friday is not a fan of playing at Yankee Stadium. That should be a lot of fun. Red Bulls take a tough loss in New England, and does the Celtics potentially sweeping the Mavericks tell us something about the Knicks season? And were the Knicks actually the most entertaining part of this year's playoffs? I don't know what that says about the NBA. We'll talk about that. And the Rangers getting a little bit of West Heat thrown on them with Florida being up 2-0 on Edmonton. It's all coming up next here on New York State Sports Night with me, Rick Feed for all their sports. We will see you in a minute. And once again, thank you for spending part of your Thursday here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all their sports on New York State Sports. Ricky Keeler here with you. One reminder, of course, you can follow us everywhere on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok at IE Sports Radio. If you're looking for this podcast, if you're not listening here live on YouTube, and you're missing out if you don't, check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Basically, wherever you get your podcast, chances are that's where you're going to find your podcast. If you're looking to follow me and the show specifically, follow the show at NY State Sports IE, or you can follow me at Rickinator555, as you can see on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to get involved here with the chat on YouTube. We got Larry B behind the glass today. Going to provide some fun behind the scenes stuff. Ralph, how are you? Hope you're doing pretty good by the pool, checking out some New York sports. So before we find out what the heck is going on with Aaron Rodgers, we got to pay some bills, because I don't think Aaron Rodgers might be paying a fine with some of those bills. We're going to check out Planet Jerky and Seal the Deal Wax Seals, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, and we'll talk some Jets. You'll see New York State Sports, 90 Sports Radio, your direct feed for all the sports. We'll be back after this.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And welcome back here to New York State Sports and Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Sending some love over to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, and jerky that's on that whole other planet. Some of those spicy flavors might take you on another planet, but the spice is always a good thing, so you might want to check some of those out. And of course, Seal the Deal Wax Seals. It's wedding season, it's graduation season, it's invitation season. You need those fancy seals for those special events. So you want to do that. Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Be sure to follow them at Seal the Deal _wax seals on Instagram, Planet Jerky at Planet Jerky on Instagram, planetjerky.net, the whole 9 yards. And if you're looking for some cool graduation gifts, why don't you head on over to the shop at IE Sports Radio, get some cool t-shirts, hats. We got a lot of cool, awesome things to get your special someone for their special event. And just support the network here. A lot of good shows going on. Be sure to check that out today. So let's talk Jets and two main absences from mandatory minicamp. And there's usually not a lot that goes on at minicamp. You don't really learn anything about your team except when crazy stuff like this happens, where the Jets are missing two key players at minicamp for two different reasons. Aaron Rodgers and Hassan Reddick. We'll get into Hassan Reddick first because it's notable, but not quite what the quarterback is. Reddick, of course, acquired from the Eagles this offseason in a trade. But everybody knew when the Jets acquired him, he was going to need a new contract. And Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas have yet to give him that contract, hence why he is not showing up. And the guy can tell you all he wants about how he's going to show up when you trade for him or he's going to be that good soldier. But the fact of the matter is, he is not going to do anything you need to unless you give him a contract. You're the ones that took the chance by trading for him. You've got to give him the deal. And this is one of the Jets' biggest pass rushers going into the season. They have no choice. He's got all the leverage. So this is one I'm going to strictly blame the Jets front office for because they created this somewhat of a mess. The bigger mess, though, is Aaron Rodgers. And the fact of the matter is, again, does anybody know where he is? No. So you can't fully rip the guy too much. But the sad reality is 31 of the 32 quarterbacks were at minicamp, and the Jets don't have theirs. And I don't care if Aaron Rodgers was at OTAs the whole time. Those aren't mandatory. I don't care if there was an event that popped up that the Jets couldn't reschedule. You have to find a way to be at your job. When I call out from my place of employment or I call out from doing this show, I have to be able to tell my boss, well, let's play this when we go to the radio here. If I'm calling out and I'm telling Larry I can't do the show, I better have a legitimate reason why I can't do the show. Otherwise, it goes as an unexcused absence. You're a teacher. You look at a report card. You got enough unexcused absences, you're going to get disciplined from your job. So there's a lack of communication somewhere in this, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or whether it's Robert Saleh. When Robert Saleh goes to the media and basically says it's an unexcused absence, it tells you the Jets don't really approve of him not being there. If they did, they would have a couple days before worked something out. Maybe the day before minicamp started, say, hey, guys, listen, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be here. We've worked this out. It's understandable on our part. And it creates less of a circus. The Jets apparently love the circus. Now, I love going to the circus. It's fun. You get to see clowns and things like that. But I don't want the circus to be my football team. Like, this is the year the Jets have to put it together. Or the head coach could be in jeopardy, the GM could be in jeopardy, and the starting quarterback could be in jeopardy in terms of his legacy. And why does Aaron Rodgers, who just said a few months ago, we have to take all the negative bleep out of the locker room. You're the one creating the negative stuff in the locker room. I don't care how much your teammates love you. I don't care how much of a good teammate you are. You need to be in minicamp. You are the leader of this football team, or supposedly the leader of this football team, because the team after 4 plays for last season, when you get hurt, all of a sudden stop being the same team it was supposed to be. So it shows you when you have that much influence as a teacher, a leader, whatever, you need to be there unless you've got really something going on. Hopefully he does not. Hopefully it's something that we're going to sit there and be like, what the heck was he doing that for? Chase Daniel had a tweet that said, wait until you hear what Aaron Rodgers does instead of with his teammates in expensive absence. Now, he does get fined, just like Hassan Reddick is going to get fined by the CBA for not showing up to a mandatory event. But what is a significant fine to Aaron Rodgers? This is Aaron Rodgers' world, and we just live in it. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what I think. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. So to not be at the center of attention, to not just be there to have a presence. If you don't want to throw, don't throw. And Ralph says Jets at Steelers Sunday football in the Berg. I think Rodgers will be there. Like, I don't think this absence has an impact on the season. Like, I don't think we're going to sit there in September when the Jets play the 49ers and Aaron Rodgers has a bad game and say, oh, it's because he missed minicamp. But that's not the point. The point is you're supposed to be there unless he's got a contract thing going on that we don't know about. Remember, he structured a lot of his deal to help the Jets get players last year. Is there something behind the scenes we don't know that's not going to come to light at some point? He'll be there and he'll play, barring injury, but he better perform. Because the longer he doesn't perform, the more scrutiny is around this team, and they don't need that. So again, we'll find out where he is. I think I've downloaded the Aaron Rodgers notification, see where I can find him. But we'll figure that out maybe next week. Big news though with the Giants as well. Darren Waller announces his retirement. Very tough things going on in his life. He had a near-death scare in November. Just got divorced in April. Was with Las Vegas Aces guard Kelsey Plum. Waller said that he wants to do things he wants to. He's going to invest time in that, but I'm also going to continue to be continue to do what I've done for addiction and mental health, that kind of advocacy. Those are big, serious issues, and you hope Darren Waller gets all the help he needs and is able to do everything he wants to do post-career. But if we take a look at it from the Giants' perspective, this was a trade they made to get more of a dynamic offense. And the fact of the matter is they don't have that. There was a stat I saw from U Stadium this week that left tackle Andrew Thomas has as many touchdowns as Darren Waller and Kenny Golladay had in their Giant careers. Think about that for a second. A left tackle has as many touchdowns as the two big acquisitions the Giants brought in to fix this offense. And that's an indictment both on Joe Shane and an indictment on Dave Gettleman when they brought in Golladay, which everybody knew that contract was a mistake when they gave it to him, but they were desperate to get a playmaker. And that's what I talk about when you're looking at Daniel Jones's career. And you can talk about how much of a disappointment it is, but they've never given him the pieces around him outside of Saquon, which the Eagles got cleared of tampering. So we can stop talking about the Eagles tampering with Barkley. The NFL came out and didn't find them, but find the Falcons for the Kirk Cousins stuff. But there's been nothing around Jones to make him successful. That and injuries. So whoever the quarterback is, if Waller was healthy at what he was last year, that Giants team would have been completely different. But he hurts his hamstring, and everything just spiraled out of control because you don't have that stability at tight end. And you can't really replace that. Now, the Giants have some options in-house they can turn to, Daniel Bellinger being one, and the rookie Theo Johnson out of Penn State. Bellinger showed some good things about a year or so ago with Jones, where I think he could play a factor. Johnson, of course, they drafted him as that receiving tight end at Penn State. I think he could play a role. But this is going to be strictly find the running game and find Malik Neighbors, at least for the start of the year. But the Giants drafted Johnson, I think, knowing Waller most likely wasn't going to be back. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody necessarily, but time is going to tell with this team. Look, they don't have the dynamic offense that you want them to. And a lot of that's going to come down to how they restructure this whole offense. Because they've got a big first week against the Vikings, and Sam Darnold was named the quarterback for Minnesota this week. So it's going to be a Sam Darnold versus, was it Jones that Drew Lock? We'll see. But that's a big game for the Giants week one. They cannot afford to lose that game and start 0-1, especially at home where they're wearing those weird looking throwback uniforms. They can't lose, especially to the former Jet quarterback in that building. So Brian Dable's got a lot of pressure that first week of the year. So we'll take our first break. We'll come back. We'll talk Yankees and their continual success on the road and why they hope to be playing an AL Central team at some point if they get to the postseason, because they love playing those teams. We'll talk about the Yankees Red Sox and whether or not that's still a rivalry. And we'll talk Mets splitting in London and having a little bit of struggles with Miami, but they get their closer back tonight. We'll talk about that coming up next here on New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all this sports. We'll be back after this.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Everybody, this is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back here to New York State of Sports on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Be sure to check out Set Point, especially with the Olympics coming up. Get your beach volleyball fix, your indoor volleyball fix. See if Team USA can take home the gold. You got the swimming trials, the track and field trials, the gymnastics trials this week. Hopefully we'll find some cool local stories to talk about with some athletes that get to be on Team USA as they head to Paris next month. But we get set to talk about baseball, and of course, we won't get baseball till in the Olympics till in LA in 4 years. But the Yankees are playing like a gold medal team right now. 8-game road win streak is their longest since 2009. They've dominated the Royals this week as they go for their 50th win this afternoon against the Royals. Nestor Cortez is pitching in that game right now. We'll get you a live score toward the end of the show since it's a 2:10 first pitch. But this team has just been absolutely raking offensively, and they had a tough time with the Dodgers over the weekend. Juan Soto didn't play, came back Monday. Larry's thrilled that his Dodgers took 2 out of 3 in that series. But you think of it this way. You didn't have Soto. You had a Friday game that went to extra innings that the Yankees could have easily won. And then you get a game like Sunday. You get Luis Gil, who goes out there, throws 5 2/3 strong innings, gives up the home run to Teoscar Hernandez, who killed them over the weekend. But you get Trent Grisham, and that's the "We Want Soto" chance. Goes out there and hits a 3-run homer as the crowd chanting that, which I don't think you could have blamed Trent Grisham if he got very angry with the fans then, because while the guy is hitting .82, every time he makes contact, he homers. So at least they've been able to contribute there. They get the lead. Luke Weaver, Clay Holmes hang on. And even though the Yankees lost only their third series of the year, you still felt good because you said, look, Soto's not there. Cole's not there. You're essentially playing right now with not a lot of help at first base, not a lot of help at third base, and you're still finding a way to win series. And you go to Kansas City, a team that is playing pretty well. I mean, they're a team that was 39-27 coming into this series, second place in the Central, and they have scored a total of 25 runs in the last 3 days. They've absolutely took it to the Royals, and it goes to show you when you look at this team, as I mentioned, 8-game road win streak. When they score first, they're 31-9, which is an amazing stat. And why the Yankees want to play the AL Central so much, they are 17-1 against the AL Central and have won 15 in a row. That's the domination of the Twins, the domination of Kansas City they're doing right now. They did take 203 from Cleveland. Let's take the Tigers and White Sox out because the Yankees, if they make the playoffs, and it looks, well, I would think they would, they're not going to play those teams. But the fact they've dominated this division so much, and this is an AL Central that is usually the weaker of the three divisions in the American League, but Cleveland's pretty good, Kansas City's pretty good, Minnesota's pretty good, Detroit has some good pitching, so the Central's not as bad. So the fact that they've dominated this division so much speaks their capability. They've scored 57 runs in the first inning this year. That includes 20 home runs. So you saw last night where you get the 3-run homer by Trevino, which makes it a 6-0 game, and basically helps Cody Petit, who, by the way, is 3-0 and 4 starts with the Yankees since taking over for Clark Schmidt. So they've been able to do things. In fact, out of the 21 losses this year, Jeff Passan had a good stat the other day, 8 of them have come in Cortez starts, and Cortez starts today. So you may want to, if you're looking to bet against the Yankees, that might be the game you bet against them. And it's not because Cortez has been bad. I mean, some of those have maybe been the bullpen blows it or things like that. But this is a straight domination. And the guy's been surprising because Judge has been really good. Of course, he continues to homer. He's got 25 on the year. Talking about maybe a 55, 60 home run pace, what he's doing. But keep an eye on Giancarlo Stanton. 11 home runs in his last 30 games. He's staying healthy. He's not playing the field, although it sounds like was listening to somebody say that Aaron Boone mentioned that he could play in the field at Fenway this week. But he's healthy. His swing is more compact. Every time he makes contact, it basically lasers to left field. He's crushing balls 440 feet the last 2 days. When he's locked in, this offense is totally different. Soto, Judge, and Stanton combined to have more home runs than 6 different baseball teams. Maybe that's just a sad reality of the lack of power in the game by some of these teams. But the fact that those 3 guys can carry a lineup led by the speed of Anthony Volpe at the top, the Yankees don't need to do that much with their offense. I think the biggest question is going to be is a month removed from the trade deadline is what they do at first base, what they do at third base. Do they just rely on Oswaldo Cabrera to play third? Do they go out and make a move? But even with the bullpen, look at Monday. Clay Holmes is unavailable. Luke Weaver's unavailable. And Michael Tonkin's getting saves. Michael Tonkin, who was awful with the Mets in 2 trips, came to New York. Every Yankee fan, including myself, was like, what the heck they getting Michael Tonkin for? I remember ending one of the episodes here and saying, oh, the Yankees got Michael Tonkin. Why? And he gets a save. Every pitcher Matt Blake touches turns to gold. And that's why it doesn't really matter what elite move the Yankees make at the deadline. They go and get Cody Petit from Cleveland this winter, and he's 3-0. He's been everything you could ask because they take him, use that one pitch he does well, and use it to his advantage. And when you have heel ready, Garrett Cole's going to rehab Friday in Rochester. We'll see if he makes another rehab start. After that, the Yankees have a really tough homestand coming up against Baltimore and Atlanta next week. I don't know if that's the right spot to put Garrett Cole in, but I guess if you wanted to get him against the Orioles, the team the Yankees lost to earlier this year, one of the only 3 series they've lost, you would probably go that direction. But before Baltimore, the Yankees take on the Red Sox this weekend at Fenway Park. And I don't see a lot of buzz with this series. And I don't think there should be a lot of buzz. That doesn't mean it's not a rivalry, but it's not the same juice it was. It's not 2003. It's not 2004. Think of it this way. They moved up that Yankee Red Sox game Friday night to 6:30 instead of 7:15. So Boston fans can go watch the Celtics potentially sweep the NBA Finals. Like Yankees Red Sox used to be the thing in Boston. It used to be the thing here in New York. And while they did play in the wild card game 2 years ago, and they played in ALDS in 18, I think 18 was the last time there was juice because it was a playoff series and both teams were good. And this is not me ripping on the Red Sox. The Yankees have had seasons in there where they haven't been very good. Last year, for example. When both teams are bad, it just becomes another series. Like it doesn't, there's no hated people either on the Red Sox. Like Yankee fans, if you're listening, you can comment on YouTube or tweet me on Twitter if you or on X if you'd like. Do you really hate Rafael Devers the way you hated David Ortiz? No. What pitcher are you afraid of on the Red Sox? And you'll see the pitching matchups coming up on the screen. A good one tomorrow night with two young guys, Luis Heel and Brian Bayo. You don't really fear any starter for the Red Sox right now. And the Red Sox, not facing Garrett Cole, they don't really sit there and hate Carlos Rodon or Marcus Stroman. Like, do the Red Sox hate Aaron Judge? Maybe it's a question Beantown Blitz should answer this weekend. But I don't think so. Like, do they hate Giancarlo Stanton? No. Are they going to maybe hate Soto after this weekend? Maybe. Maybe if the Yankees re-sign Soto, it changes the whole dynamic. But I'll give you the dynamic that could change the rivalry. Ken Rosenthal brought up this point on his podcast, Fair Territory, today. Alex Cora is in the final year of his deal as manager. If Aaron Boone doesn't get the Yankees to the World Series, Alex Cora could be the next manager of the Yankees. Now, you talk about the reverse of Johnny Damon going from Boston to New York. If Cora becomes the Yankee manager, which I was one saying that if Boone goes, that's the number one guy I want. You look at that Red Sox team, the fact that they're 500 right now with all their injuries is pretty impressive. Cora gets the most out of his guys and always has Boston fighting when they don't have that talent. And that's what helps this rivalry out because Boone and Cora are good friends. So you don't have the hatred amongst managers either. So maybe that's the state of baseball, that there's not a lot of hated teams. But if you're a Yankee fan right now, you maybe hate the Orioles more because you're trying to beat them for the division. You maybe hate the Astros more based off the last few postseasons that they beat you. Maybe you hate Toronto more because you're trying to show that the Blue Jays are overrated, or Tampa has given them more problems over the years. The Red Sox haven't given the Yankees problems, and when Boston's good, the Yankees haven't given them problems. So I think what also hurts is the fact they don't play 18 times. They only play 12 times. Like the fact that the Yankees and Red Sox are playing for the first time in mid-June is never a good thing. I remember a couple years ago they waited until July to play their first series. You need that series early and often, or that juice goes away. So we'll see if that changes. The matchups this weekend, I mentioned Heel against Bayo on Friday. Note the special time at 6:30, not 7. Saturday is Carlos Rodon against Cooper Criswell. Rodon going for his 10th win. He's been really good. And Marcus Stroman, who threw 5 1/3 shutout innings the other day against the Royals, he takes on Cutter Crawford. That's the ESPN vehicle. So the Yankees get back-to-back Sunday night ESPN games, back-to-back Fox games, and we'll see what they do. But already a good road trip, and they're going to get tested over the next week. Baltimore's going to be a tough series, and Atlanta, even though the Braves are struggling, that'll be a good AL NL test for the Yankees, because Atlanta still is one of the 4 NL teams I think has a shot at a World Series title. Meanwhile, the Mets. Now, they got a split in London against the Phillies. They had bad defense the first game from Starling Marte, which did not help Sean Manaea. They win on Sunday thanks to the Phillies not being able to find the strike zone. Luis Torrens makes an insane double play, which takes also a pretty dirty slide by Garrett Stubbs. But the Mets find a way to split. They lose the game Tuesday against the Marlins, which I was at. The stadium energy was not what it should have been. I think that this team doesn't really create a lot of lively buzz right now. And I think some of that buzz might come tonight. Edwin Diaz is back. He's going to be the closer. Carlos Mendoza even said he's going to be the closer, and that's the right decision. I don't usually you'd want a guy to earn those reps back. The fact of the matter is the Mets have nobody that can even come close to what Edwin Diaz is capable of in that bullpen. And having to hear Narco and the trumpets and all those things that he's back brings something to the team, brings a vibe to the Citi Field fans, brings a vibe to the energy in the building. You kind of need that because that game Tuesday, when Mark Vientos has a 2-run double in the second, after that, the Mets didn't do anything. And what stands out about the Mets' flaws, they're bad on defense. I wrote an article over on Metsmerize.com after Tuesday's game. The Mets have had the second most errors in the National League, and they're also one of the worst teams on Fangraphs in terms of defensive runs saved. And there's some pretty good, reliable veterans on that team that should be playing well to the back of their baseball card. There are only 2 players with a defensive run saved in a 0 or positive number. That's Brandon Nimmo and Harrison Bader, who both almost collided in the 5th inning the other day. Now, Vientos is getting better at third, and you do sacrifice offense for defense when you pick him over Brett Beatty. And he did, on a play on Tuesday, knock a ball down to prevent 2 runs from scoring, but he rushed to throw and allowed 1 run to score. Francisco Alvarez, who's a better power hitter than defender, throws the ball away in the 9th, leads to the Marlins getting an insurance run on a sac fly. You're giving teams extra outs, and the Mets aren't good enough to give you extra outs and expect to win. They have to play perfect because they're not getting length in their starting pitching. Tyler McGill had 8 strikeouts Tuesday, didn't even finish the 5th. Like that can't happen the way he was dominating. That's disappointing. And this is why it's a big game tonight. If Luis Severino doesn't perform and the Mets lose another series to the Marlins, I'm not even going to talk about if they're going to make a wild card spot. And it's sad that they're 3-4 games out. You cannot lose series to the Marlins and sell me on that this team can contend. The Marlins are bad. You watched the game last night, they won 10-4. The Marlins throwing the ball out all over the ballpark. You can't lose those games, especially if you're playing a guy. Was it Roddery Munoz tonight? Go get 6-7 runs off this guy. Give your starter some support. So we'll see what goes on. The Mets play the Padres this weekend before they go to Texas, which that series gets ruined because there's no Scherzer and no DeGrom for the Rangers. You see the pitchers there. And again, the Mets can beat the Padres. Padres are a game over 500. And Dylan Cease may be the only guy that you fear out of those 3 starters. The Mets have a pretty favorable schedule up until the All-Star break. This is the time they have to make a run. If they're going to make a run at all. They've got San Diego, they've got Texas, the Cubs, Houston, Washington, Pittsburgh, Washington, Colorado, and they got the Yankees for a brief series at home. Make a push. And it starts tonight. That means Lindor's got to perform. Jeff McNeil's still struggling. Brandon Nimmo's been really bad since being the 3-hitter. They've got to figure out what's up with him. But a good love to Tyrone Taylor last night. He had 4 hits. He's doing some things. But again, it speaks to the quality of competition in the National League that the Mets are 29-37 and they're 3.5 out of a playoff spot. And Adam Karnick says losing a series to Miami is tantamount to losing to a AAA team. I will try to. I was very mean to Adam's team last week. I will not do that this week. But there's a sentence I want to say that I'm not going to say on this show right now. But again, you're 3.5 out of a playoff spot, and you're playing the Padres, who you're 5 behind. If you can win 2 out of 3, that helps you. San Diego's 2 games over 500 is the 5th seed in the National League right now. That's a sneakily big series for the Nets, who have not played well at home. You can see it. There's just not a lot of buzz when they play at Citi Field. Doesn't really. I don't get it. There's not the crowd didn't get that loud the other day. I'm not blaming anything on particular. It was just weird that there wasn't a lot going on. Maybe this is a Tuesday night in June. See, Adam, you said it, not me. I'm glad you said it at least. So we'll see what the Mets do. We'll see what the Yankees can do. And again, we'll give you an update on that game in the next 20 minutes or so. So we'll take our final break. We'll come back. We'll talk Liberty, 11-2, best team in the WNBA, as they get set for a big matchup this week. And we'll talk some soccer. Yankee Stadium in soccer, apparently an opposing coach hates that idea. And we'll talk about much more coming up next here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all this sports. One more break, and we'll come back right after this.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
IE Sports Radio fans, it's your boy, the SoCal Saint, the host of the premier professional wrestling podcast online today, the IE Elite Wrestling Show. If you're a fan and have a passion for the world of professional wrestling, this is the show for you. I take you inside the ropes with all the athleticism, high-flying, and hard-hitting action, and then we take it backstage with all the backstage drama and backstabbing that goes on in the world of professional wrestling today. If something's going on in the world of professional wrestling, rest assured, the SoCal Saint knows what's going on, and he's going to let you know too. If you're a fan, check us out every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on IE Sports Radio. The IE Elite Wrestling Show, your direct feed for all that is professional wrestling, on the only network that is your direct feed for all that is sports. Check us out.
Welcome back, everybody. Final segment here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Got a great lineup, of course, coming up for you later tonight. We got Magic City Sports at 7 o'clock, so if you want your hockey fix, talking Florida Panthers Game 3, we're going to dive into more toward the end of the show. I was on Defining Moment last week with Larry, and I've got egg on my face because Edmonton's down 2-0 already. But I'm holding out hope for Connor McDavid. I think they can make that more interesting than the NBA Finals has been, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But let's talk Liberty. And what's been impressive with this team isn't the fact that they're 11-2. They just played 5 games in 8 days and won them all, which isn't. I know that the WNBA slate is only 40 games, but the fact of the matter is when you've got that small of a window and a lack of recovery time, and they didn't have Courtney Vandersloot for a couple of those games, she's been out due to personal reasons, to find ways to win is impressive. And you look at this team beating Connecticut on Saturday, giving them their first loss, finding a way to get contributions from multiple players. And I think the linchpin for this team, as we talked about the last few weeks, has been Jonquel Jones. She had 22 points and 8 boards on Saturday. She hit some clutch shots. She had 29 points against the Mystics on Sunday. The Mystics fortunately finally got a win, which makes Mike pretty happy. But Jones, when she's performing to help Inescu and Stewie and Laney Hamilton, they got points from mostly 6 players the other day. Marcus, how are you, my friend? Yeah, Liberty Adam are really good this year. They clinched a spot in the Commissioner's Cup final. They will actually host that game against whoever comes out of the West, whether that's Vegas, whether that's Seattle, could be Minnesota, who beat the Liberty this year. Liberty go out west this week, and we'll dive into that matchup in a minute. But they were in the Commissioner's Cup final last year. They're back there this year, which is kind of like the WNBA's version of the in-season tournament that the NBA has, where money goes to charity. It's a really cool thing. But you love the balance the Liberty have had. Laura Fevich has done a good job off the bench. So they're finding a way to get contributions from like 7-8 players. But Sandy Brundell, the coach, has done a really good job, which leads to a big game Saturday, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. They're taking on the Las Vegas Aces. And there's a lot of storylines with this game. Of course, it's a rematch of last year's WNBA championship, which the Aces won in 4 games. Brianna Stewart didn't play her best in that final, so I'm sure she'll be looking to have a big bounce back here against the Vegas team that isn't at their strongest right now. They've lost 3 in a row. Their last game they played against the Lynx, Minnesota, was very good from 3-point range. They were 15 for 27. And you look at a Liberty team that does like to shoot the 3 with Sabrina Inescu. She's been one of the better 3-point shooters in the league this year. This is a game where the Liberty, I think, will try to make a statement. I think the key is going to be to do what Minnesota did. Try to stop the 3-point, try to shoot the 3, and let everybody else, let Asia Wilson get hers. Look, you're not going to stop her in the paint. One of the problems the Liberty had last year in the championship was Wilson was getting their bigs in foul trouble. If Asia Wilson gets 20 plus, which she's practically a lock to get every night the way she's been performing, let her. You stop Kelsey Plum, you stop Jackie Young, and you make sure that those players are limited in what they can do. Do I expect to win? Not necessarily, because look, the Liberty aren't going to win every game. But the fact that they have been as dominant as they have been is really tough to find. The Connecticut gave them a really good test. That game at Mohegan Sun Saturday was a lot of fun. Liberty dominated early. Connecticut got back into it, became like a tough defensive battle toward the end. But it shows that's the kind of game the Liberty can win. And what shows a great team is what they did against Washington. You could think let down, emotional after a big game, and the Mystics kept it close, but Liberty found a way to win. They're also going to get 2 people into the Olympics this year for Team USA, Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Inescu. So congratulations to those 2 ladies. Hopefully they take home the gold. And we'll see who gets picked for the WNBA All-Star game, who will face Team USA in exhibition. Maybe Jonquel Jones gets picked for that game and gets a chance to show her stage. But Stewart and Inescu have been big for this group. The Liberty, I'm sure, will hope that they don't get hurt out in Paris because that, of course, that the season's still going on. But it's still a good thing to represent your country. That's why when I look at the Olympics, and we talked about before that baseball isn't in it until 2028, I want my stars in the Olympics. I want baseball to shut down for a week or 2 because the World Baseball Classic is fun. Let's bring that to the Olympics. I want my stars performing on that stage. It's an honor to represent your country. And it affects the team, affects the injuries and these things. That's what we're seeing both. We're going to see how the WNBA, we're going to see that we get an MLS with Euro coming up tomorrow, Euro 2024, Copa America starting next week. And I've seen complaints about, the season needs to shut down. Like, you're supposed to build a depth around your team to where your players can do that. When you're not the size of the NBA and the NHL and these big leagues, you can't shut down because your stars want to go play in international competitions. You've got to keep the growth, and maybe you find players over the next month that perform, that when those players get back, you find a way to produce. So congratulations to both them. Very impressive stuff. So like I said, Liberty are at Vegas, then they're at Phoenix, and then have a home-and-home with the Sparks. We'll talk more about that next week. Sparks not playing well, but Cameron Brink, she's really good. Number 2 pick in the draft. We'll dive into that. But Phoenix is also, I think, a tricky game as well with Tarasi and Griner. That they've got the good pieces there. So let's talk some soccer. Not a lot going on this week. NYCFC was off. They will play Friday at home at Yankee Stadium against the Columbus Crew. And there was something interesting I stumbled across. The Columbus Crew coach, Wilfred Nancy, was talking to the media, and he had some very harsh criticism about Yankee Stadium. Basically saying that we've got all these eyes on the game, Apple TV, all these things, that we're playing on a baseball field. Again, is he wrong? No. And that's why their team is going to get a new stadium in the next couple of years. And I think it's going to help soccer grow here in the tri-state area because that stadium is going to be state of the art. Because NYCFC deserves a new stadium. You think about the title a couple of years ago, they're the last New York team to win a championship. And they could be a team that, hey, they might get that designated player to come here this summer and add to it. I read an article on the Hudson River website about Antoine Griezmann. If they were to land him, that would be so big for this team because it adds another player into the mix that can score. So he's not wrong. I don't know if I would have said that, though, going into Yankee Stadium, because I think on a Friday night in May, that crowd is going to be electric. And you might get a good crowd in the Bronx for that kind of, or Friday night in June, you might get a good crowd for that. But it reminds me of like remember the old days when you would watch the Jets and the Giants go to Oakland and you would see the baseball diamond on the field, or you go play at Miami, a pro player, and you would see or Qualcomm with the Chargers. I get it's a bad optic. I get it doesn't look like a soccer pitch necessarily. But at the same time, that's where the team is at. Like, is Citi Field that much better than Yankee Stadium? Now, if that Columbus coach said, well, Citi Field is just as bad, okay, then I could kind of understand where he's going with this. But from watching the game, I mean, let me know here in the chat or on Twitter what you think. I don't really see it's that different from watching a soccer game. But if you're looking for a fun game here, I think NYCFC is going to be a little bit rejuvenated. And it's going to be an entertaining game. The last two times that the Crew and NYCFC have played, the games have ended in draws. And if you're at NYCFC, the way you're performing and the way you've been unbeaten with Nick Cushing as the coach the last few weeks, you'll take that draw. Get the points, keep moving up in the standings. And as we talked about last week, with Messi and Suarez going to play in Copa America, Miami gets a little weaker. Cincinnati might get a little weaker. You could get yourself up into the top two in the standings and give yourselves a little bit of breathing room over the summer. So a big test there. Red Bulls, not so much. They go to New England at Gillette and lay an egg. They lost 1-0. Not the kind of game that you would expect. And look, you have to give them grief for it. I know it's one game, but New England is that bad. You can't lose a game like that on the road. You've got to get away with 3 points or at least get 8 points. Got to find a way to draw and get out of there successful. So they will take on Nashville coming up on Saturday. They've been pretty good at home, the Red Bulls. They've got to think they're going to find a way to come out with a victory. I believe they're giving out like an Emil Forsberg mini Lego this week. That's pretty cool. It's like a mini figurine that looks like a Lego. So I think that's and NYCFC's got a Hawaiian shirt night tomorrow. I think the Mets also a lot of Hawaiian shirts at Citi Field this week. I think the Mets have that too. Nashville and the Red Bulls played back in February. That game ended no score. So hopefully we'll see some goals in that game because I'll say this with soccer. When one of my pet peeves in sports, to me, as a soccer fan that really watches a lot of World Cup, watches a lot of international competition, and gets entertained by the stars that are in those games, my pet peeve is when the game ends 0-0 or 0-0 or whatever you want to call it. Because I get it's a great defensive game, a great tactician game, but I want goals. I want offense. I want people getting bicycle kicks like we saw Colombia destroy the U.S. the other day in Washington. And thank God that U.S. tied Brazil yesterday, or that would have been. I was expecting that to be a disaster. But I want goals in these games. I've been a proponent of shrinking the field, getting rid of offsides, and let's see like 5-4 kind of ball games. But I think that even with Lewis Morgan going to the Euros for Scotland, they play Germany tomorrow. I think they'll have a good game. And look, get out to MetLife at the end of the month, see some action. It's Argentina and Chile, and Uruguay and Bolivia. We'll have some group games here. We'll try to do some more in-depth previews on that over the next couple of weeks. We'll dive into some of the tactics with those those 4 teams, and see where they're at. And if there is a semifinal, I think, here as well in July. We also had Jason Wirt's horse win the Belmont. I don't think anybody picked that here. I think Ralph's horse that he picked came in second. So I will give Ralph some love picking Mind Frame that came close. My horse, not even a shot. But that was still some fun out at Saratoga. Which leads me here talking about the Knicks. And the Celtics look like they're going to sweep the Mavericks. And the question is going to be, does this potential Celtics sweep affect how we view the Knicks season? I think the Knicks would have been the toughest test left for Boston. Do I think they would have beat them? No, I think they probably needed Julius Randle to do that, or at least, but I think they could have taken them if Brunson was healthy to 6-7 games, because they have the depth when healthy to match what Boston is. The reason why the Celtics are so impressive is Jason Tatum really only has had one great game in this series, but they get contributions from Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Xavier Tillman comes in for Porzingis last night and hit some big shots. Al Horford, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. The depth around this Celtic team is really what stands out to me. And Dallas only has 2 stars, Luka and Kyrie. And when Luka comes out, like he did at the end of game 3, it changes the way that team is. And the Knicks kind of have that similarly, where if Jalen Brunson doesn't play, and you saw that in game 2 against Indiana, the team just takes an emotional letdown. But the Knicks themselves have enough depth to get through. And I think when you look at this offseason, coming up with the trade deadline and things like that, not trade deadline, but free agency, I want the Knicks to look at depth. I want them to be able to withstand those injuries. If they, let's say they re-sign Anunoby, he gets hurt, or Randall's slow to come back. Because you're looking at maybe Donovan Mitchell not being available if he signs a short-term extension. Outside of Paul George, you don't really see the big free agents that are out there. So why not take, you have 2 first-round picks, try to get some young depth into the mix. We'll dive into the draft maybe next week, because the draft is only 2 weeks from tonight. Maybe they get a guy like Ryan Dunn. Maybe they get Zach Edey. Maybe they find a way to get some 3-point shooting at the end of the first round and help their team. Maybe they sign a couple guys off to friendly deals in free agency that helps this group. Because you could make the argument this group needs a superstar, and I still think they need a 1A with Brunson. Not necessarily a guy where Brunson's the 1A. But if they can't get that going, I wouldn't mortgage the future with this summer. Keep in mind, when you go to next year in 25, the new rights deals kick in, which, by the way, not only the NBA gets some things, there's some news out that Big East basketball might go to TNT and Peacock next year in addition to Fox in 25. So that's a big news for St. John's and getting some more exposure and the streaming services and things like that. And they do get a boost with Danny Hurley staying in Connecticut. But if you're the Knicks, go to 2025 and make your splash then. You don't have to do it right now. Look with the Celtics. Think about how they had all those picks, and everybody was begging Danny Ainge and begging Brad Stevens, use those picks. Like, the team we should be really talking about is the Nets. They let the Celtics get Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and now they're about to get a championship out of it. And you went with the short-term fix with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and trying to reestablish something, and it didn't work. You're seeing a team in Dallas that tried to get Luka and Kyrie and make it, and it just didn't happen. And from all the talk about who's this new face of the NBA, and I'll never talk about Jalen Brunson like that because I don't think he's the face of the NBA necessarily. but it's still about building a team. And that's where Leon Rose and Worldwide West and all these guys, I wouldn't go mortgage everything just to go for the next year when you have maybe a 3-year window. If Tom Thibodeau gets an extension, which I think he should, he's in his mid-60s. You don't want to have to necessarily more. You're not going to have a 5-year window, but you could have a 3-year window being really good. And I don't need to mortgage it like they would have to do last year with Utah and give up Grimes and 3 players and 5 picks. You've seen how those teams do it. Look at Phoenix. Brooklyn is fortunate they made that deal with Phoenix because now they get some of those picks back they lost for Harden. They kind of got a reprieve. Not everybody's going to give you a reprieve, especially when you're the Knicks. You're not going to get that Red Sox, Dodgers, Carl Crawford, Adrian Gonzalez mulligan that a few years ago. Doesn't happen. Rangers, I don't think that, like I said, you look at the way Edmonton is, they've had fewer shots than the Rangers the last 2 games. So when we talk about, and Chris Drury made a good point, that everything's on the table. And I'm glad he said that because at least it shows you that a lot of options are open for the Rangers this summer. But if you watch Florida and you watch Edmonton with that skill set, still struggling to get shots, and at least the Rangers had chances against Bobrovsky more than Edmonton has. If the Oilers go out in 4 or 5, then it makes you think, hey, maybe this Rangers season wasn't as disappointing as we thought. Maybe just Florida's a better team and about to win a Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history. And how do we take that next step and improve on the margins rather than have to blow it up? Last year they blew it up in terms of the coach. We will see, but it was good to see that, hey, Drury said, hey, there might be a possibility that we look into moving some things around where he is not afraid to make those kind of changes. So with a couple minutes left, we'll give you a quick update on the Yankees score. Since it's a 2:10 first pitch, it's no score in the bottom of the 4th. So they have played 3.5 innings in 45 minutes. You got to love the fast-paced baseball or just getaway day. It's a nice day out in Kansas City. It's just nice getaway, get some barbecue, and then head out there. Speaking of Kansas City, happy birthday to Bishop, by the way. Getting some love out there for the Chiefs and for Patrick Mahomes. So that's going to do it here on another episode of New York State of Sports. Again, if you find out where Aaron Rodgers is, just let me know so I can maybe talk about it next week. We'll have some more information on that. I don't want this to turn into a game show, but apparently it has become that. It's just more dysfunction with the Jets. And this is the year they need less dysfunction. And it just seems like there's more. But I will tell on that. Yankees Red Sox this weekend at Fenway. The Yankees find a way to keep this road success going. Going for a chance at 50 wins today. Definitely the best team in the American League, if not the best team in baseball right now. And we'll talk next week about a big homestand with Baltimore and Atlanta. That'll maybe get more of an idea of where the Yankees are, even though we kind of know already. Very quickly, breaking news here on the show. Rangers have agreed to a 1-year deal with Capo Caco, according to Larry Brooks, New York Post, $2.4 million. So Capo Caco is staying in New York, but we'll get into this next week. Maybe that means it's a deal they can make a trade with. We'll talk about that. That's going into San Diego this week at home. Got to get those home vibes going. Liberty at Las Vegas this week. We'll see this big game, big stage, ABC Saturday afternoon. Can they get another big win on the road and keep their win streak going? And NYCFC and the fans kind of told the Columbus coach about how Yankee Stadium is a bad place to play soccer. And we'll see if they do add that striker at some point this summer, at number 9, that changes their team. Red Bulls, can they get back on the winning side at home? And Celtics, I think, will sleep, but we'll get a chance to talk to the NBA draft next week on the show. A lot coming up. Thanks for tuning in. Follow Aggregator 555 at NYC Sports IE at IE Sports Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Happy Father's Day to all you dads out there, and I'll see you next week.